Now, there's an awful lot of politics going on, of course, as we gear up to the budget, and a group of politicians are gathering today to try and call on the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, to make more of a wealth tax. So the leader of the Green Party, Zack Polanski, is one of them. He joins us now. Thanks for being with us. What are you hoping to see in the budget?
Thank you very much. I'm out here with a group of young people with Green New Deal Rising. They're ultimately here because they will be poorer than their parents. And what they're saying is we have a housing crisis, a climate crisis, and an inequality crisis. And what we all want to see from this budget is not tough choices for working class communities, for migrants, for disabled people, but actually tough choices for multimillionaires and billionaires. It's time to tax for rich. And so we're calling for a wealth tax on assets, a 1% tax on assets of £10 million or more, or a 2% tax on assets of £1 billion or more. As well as this, to bring capital gains tax in line with income tax, so we are taxing unearned wealth as much as we're taxing earned income. Ultimately, it's all about fairness.
I guess you say that a wealth tax could raise £24 billion. These are people who can pay for the best accountants, right? They can move their assets around, they can leave the country if they need to. Peter Carl told me yesterday that he is worried about billionaires leaving the country because of this Labour government's tax proposals as it is. Wealth tax sounds great in theory, but is it realistic that there's always going to be, these kind of helpful other people who are going to be able to pay for the things that you want to spend money on?
Well, first of all, I'd hope Peter Kyle is more worried about the homeless people on our streets, or the people using food banks, rather than worrying about the multimillionaires and billionaires. But actually,
I think the reason that he's worried about it is because they will stop paying tax in the UK, which is what you would end up, that goes to fund things like homelessness, though, right?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, let's make sure that we're investing in HMRC so people aren't able to escape paying tax. That's ultimately about fairness. Everyone, particularly the poorest people, are made to pay their tax, and they're not going to get away with it. So why should the super rich get away with it? But also, we're talking about assets here, and most of the time you can't just pick up an asset and move. The Duke of Westminster owns half of Mayfair. You can't just pick that up and move away with it. So ultimately, it's about making sure that we're targeting the assets. I also think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of wealth. Look, if you're poor, you need to make decisions based on your lack of money, and that factors into every decision. If you're very wealthy and you're being asked to pay 1% or 2% on your wealth, the idea you're just going to get up and leave the country because you don't want to pay what is a relatively small proportion of your wealth just seems a little bit absurd. And I think what it speaks to is far too often this Labour government, who have taken donations from multimillionaires and billionaires, are far more concerned about serving their vested interests rather than the communities who actually elected them to represent them.
There's talk about Rachel Reeves re-looking at council tax bans. So many people think that that is actually a very good way to tax assets a little bit more, to look at those higher valued properties and make them pay more that way. Is that something you'd support?
Yeah, I'd absolutely support that. I think there's pretty much a universal support or universal condemnation of the council tax bans, and that it's a completely unfair and unwise way to do things. So obviously this would depend on the detail that comes out tomorrow, but absolutely in principle, it's totally something I'd support.
Can I just ask you one other thing as well? You're campaigning outside with a big kind of papier-mâché model of Rachel Reeves. It's not the most flattering image, I have to say. She looks a bit like a witch. At a time when our political discourse is so toxic, do you think that's a kind of grown-up politics?
Well, I think it's difficult to make a papier-mâché of anyone that looks particularly flattering. I should say we've got one of Keir Starmer as well that isn't out here today. I think grown-up politics, or what's been known as I often get accused of doing student or sixth form politics, and what I would say is for young people I'm with today, I was also with 2,000 sixth formers yesterday, they're some of the most inspiring, articulate people who really have a vision of what this country looks like. I think you can have fun in politics and also use eye-grabbing images to get interviews like this, and also talk about the really severe issues and the difficult issues that are facing this country. I think you can do all of those things at the same time, and it's completely coherent.
And just finally, the Green Party has achieved the highest ever poll rating. You got a defection last week, a former Brighton Labour MP. Are you having conversations with any current Labour MPs about joining the Green Party? Do you think you might get another defection?
I'm really delighted how things are going. Since I was elected as Green Party leader over 2 months ago, over 100,000 new people have joined the Green Party, which is a pretty astonishing acceleration. And I would say to any person who shares the values of environmental, social, racial and economic justice, who wants to lower bills and tax billionaires, including Labour MPs, it is time to join the Green Party.
Are you having any conversations with any people who you think might actually defect, though? Maybe some of the people you're campaigning with today?
Yes, I'm having conversations with people all the time, including Labour MPs, about potential defections. But ultimately, I think the real thing that matters here is how we're serving communities rather than shuffling kind of cards around on the table. What I'm really excited about is winning elections, and we're winning by-elections at the local level, week in, week out. And it's time to start doing that at the next general election too.
OK, thanks very much. Good to have you on the programme, Zack Polanski, the leader of the Green Party.